The January 28th, 2026 MSD Township Board of Education working session and Board of Finance meeting is called to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Burke, could you do the roll call, please? I'm terribly sorry. Mrs. O'Day Marcotte.
Brandon Bowman,
Present.
Susan Graves, President. Karen Burke, President. Michael Gordon,
Present.
Renita Graham, President. Ben Wakefield, and I'm Sherry O'Day Marcotte, we're all present.
Thank you.
Got cameras on the computer. We start doing the pledge, and all of a sudden I hear this voice.
Dr. Suggs, we are at item 2, the Board of Finance reorganization to elect officers. Dr. Samuel, do you have any guidance?
So we we don't need to elect officers. I don't believe so. No. We made those decisions at the meeting in January, last meeting.
Okay, so no official action needed. No one for public comment. Board reports, 2026 Board of Finance and DUAB fiscal indicators. All right. There you go.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. This is our annual January check-in on finance, but I hope and I think this is more of an ongoing conversation for us. And this is really just another checkpoint and opportunity to talk about what we have seen with actuals and expenditures and revenues, and kind of compared to what our projections were, and make sure that we're still in line with those pieces. So as always, as we work through this, if you have questions, please chime in with those. This is a lot more about the conversation than it is about here's all the data. First, in general. So themes for 2025. As we work through this, you will see, and as we have had the conversation over the last 12 to 18 months, we were confident we were going to be spending through cash balance. So we're going to have more expenditures than we did revenue, and you'll see that has played out. We'll be able to do a little conversation about what that final number looks like versus what some of our projections were, and work through each of those pieces. One of the other themes is our IRA dollars, the Inflation Reduction Act dollars related to the battery projects at 7 of our school sites and the solar project here at the Ed Center. We received a check for just over $2 million from the IRS, and we're able to use that money to fund the $1,000 stipend that staff members got without hitting the education fund or the operations fund for that. We are hopeful, as the way the tax season works, to file again for new transportation center. Those documents should be released any day now, as we head into February. So then we can work with our tax consultant and file for that facility as well. So we're optimistic, as we did last time. We're not going to count on that money until that check is sitting in our hands, but we're cautiously optimistic that we have a check for about the same amount that we should qualify for, as well as everything goes as we can there. Certainly, we're happy to get that. The clear picture after the expiration of ESSER, those stipends that we talked about, but that full year of the positions and programs that we had funded through ESSER while we had those dollars, now completely shifting back. So for 24, that was just the last couple months. Now we have that full year snapshot. And then that cash balance spending is really all about kind of projections and actuals. And we'll again drill down in more detail at what that final number was, how we got to that number, and how that compares to those projections that we had. So starting with investment results, and for consistency's sake, we've kept some of these slides. This is a little bit challenging to unpack. And so what I'm going to do is flip over here to this slide. Basically, these are all of our bank accounts. When you factor in each of these, various investments occurring on different levels. You know, the money that we have with Trust Indiana, we get a really good rate of return on. We talked last year about how the difference between the large cash balance in Trust Indiana versus Hoosier Fund had flipped based on some concerns we were having with the Hoosier Fund and access to statements and things like that. But you can see the rate that we're getting there is highly competitive. That's why we maintain that high balance there. And of course, we have some other certificates of deposit that we're out kind of extending on to try to balance our where we're at in the market with that. If interest rates continue to go down and we can already have some of those CDs invested a little further out, we can hopefully realize a little bit better percentage on those investments for slightly longer. So we're balancing that, laddering those so that we can, of course, make some of those bond investments with those dollars.
Next question.
Yeah.
So what is trust meeting? Is that something that only governmental agencies can invest in?
Yeah, so it's for municipalities. And again, they're gonna just take a different, because of that volume that they get, they can take a little different approach to where they're putting their money after we market with that and generate a little bit better return. Good question, but yeah, that's really exactly what it was. Large municipalities.
Is that the same with the Hoosier Fund also?
That's right. Okay, that's right. So all in all, where does that put us? You can see here, continue to do really well with our investments. As we talked about previously, you can see on this slide where that puts us in comparison to previous, last year we're down slightly, which is to be expected. Interest rates have been down. Our cash balances are slightly less, but when we're looking at this, you got to remember it's two different pieces. This is some of our bond dollars. Once we sell those bonds, before we have to pay those construction companies, we have those funds. So we're investing those dollars while we're waiting to spend them to kind of, again, generate as much as we can. And then we also have our cash balance on the operations fund, referendum fund, hedge fund side that we're in rainy day fund that we're investing in. So, we have significantly less debt dollars to invest today than we did, partially because the transportation center was from our 2022 bonds. We've been sitting on lots of money there, waiting for that project to be ready to go and investing those over the years. And now we've expended those. 2022 was also one of our really big bonds, right? We had about $90 million of bonds. So as we reduce the amount of bonds we're asking for every year, of course, the amount we have to invest at that interval. But very pleased with this. And of course, in our projections for the operation fund and rainy day fund interest, we talked last year about how we're baking in the projection that this is going to go down. So that if it goes up, that's great news. If it stays static, that's great news. But knowing that the general environment is that interest rates are going to be decreasing, we're dialing back what we expect to take in for revenue on interest.
And we can assume, and this is true, that in those years that we had higher bonds, It's coincided when we were doing our bigger projects.
Absolutely.
So we had several elementaries we were doing at the same time. The onset of the high school.
2022, yeah, I have to go back. 2022 was lots of projects.
Lots of projects.
They were kind of all in process of finishing up as I took on this position, but a lot of projects that have been dated place with campus.
And a couple of roofs.
Yeah, lots of roofing, HVAC work, lots of energy savings were in that first 30 million or so. That was kind of devoted to that and also that.
Was that because we had the ESSER dollars that were paying for some projects? So we didn't have to touch a lot of our money, is that right?
More related to balancing that debt payment. And so I have to go back and look specifically, but what I anticipate I would find is there was some debt falling off leading into those years. And so, the decision was, okay, we can maintain and not ask our community for more dollars, but if we want to keep that rate where we're at, our levy where it's at, we're gonna have to invest in our facilities. And it coincided with, I think, a pretty good stretch where we had tried to be very frugal. And our facilities were in need of roofs, of HVAC, and we needed strategies to support our operations fund with some of that energy savings.
The funding mechanism, excuse me, the funding mechanism can get really messy. In some part, we're required to allocate funds for debt service. So in a school corporation like this, where we have facilities to maintain, it's not really the goal to get out of debt. The idea is that we're in debt somewhat in perpetuity, renewing bonds as bonds are falling off. And that's what gives us the avenue to take care of current and future projects just by reallocating new debt.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but also that investment opportunity is happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Very good. So looking at 2026, of course, we're going to continue to look at investment strategies, ladder those CDs to make sure we obviously can pay our bills for the construction projects. So we're having quarterly meetings with those partners. What does that draw schedule look like? How much do we think we're going to spend each month based on the progress that they're making so that we can make sure that those CDs are maturing at the appropriate times that's paid those vendors would help us maintain our facilities. And of course, the state budget will be coming up, a year from now. That will be the big topic, new legislation. And then we've talked a lot about enrollment impact on it. That continues to be a huge piece of where we're at. The upcoming slide will give us a deeper dive into that. So the statute for DUAB, the Distress Unit Appeals Board says, basically, in order to hopefully keep districts off of that list and out of the interaction with DUAB, we need to annually go through a set of financial indicators. It's a little bit vague on what those are, but the next 6 slides will go through what we have deemed to be kind of the most important piece of that, so that we're all on the same page with where that sits. Enrollment. So 15.85 is a pretty good dip. You can see not our largest net change either way over this time horizon from 2013 to today, but that increase we had from 13-14 to 14-15 was larger than this decrease. But the largest decrease that we've seen in quite some time as we hit that pinnacle of 16,891 just before the pandemic. We know that each of those kids comes with dollars. So we talked a little bit about that previously, but that obviously impacts what we're talking about with regard to projections. So our annual deficit and surplus. The green obviously is really good. The yellow, not as much. The good news is we had plenty of green before this year. And so this slide is very straightforward. We spent $10 million more than what we took in our operations referendum and education funds this year. Remember during the SEA one conversation, we were really talking about that being closing in on the $15 million range, potentially with some of those projections. And so I want to take a moment now to talk about what happened between now and then. How did we end up at 10? What were those mechanisms? So one of them is occasionally we collect more in property taxes than what our partners at Policy Analytics tell us we should expect. That can be for late payments, the number of things that can come into that. That happened to the tune of almost $1.5 million here at the end of 2025. So that was a significant factor. We just talked a lot about interest. As we were digging into the interest this year, we identified that where we were receiving the interest was a little bit skewed. We had been receiving too much of it with our debt dollars and not enough with our operations fund or rainy day fund dollars from those investments. So we worked with our financial analysts upstairs to go back, recalculate that. Good news is it meant there should be more money in our operations fund. So once we got that squared away, again, around $1 million over the last 4 or 5 years that were not received into the correct account. So that's not something we should expect in the future, but it is something that impacts this number here today. And then the other piece is we had 4 months to go when we were having those conversations. We really had September, October, November, December. We didn't have actuals. We hadn't really gone through our cash flow yet. And I think the encouraging part there is that while we are still spending more than we take in on a monthly basis, we are starting to spend less than our projections. And so the brakes are being applied. There's a handful of things that play into that. When we have everybody being more conscientious of what they're doing with those dollars, I think that certainly contributes. And then those balance of positions with enrollment, all of those pieces that go with that. So that's great. It doesn't mean the work is done, but it means that we can say we're making progress here. And we should be encouraged by that because you can't turn a ship like this around if you don't stop moving in the wrong direction first. And that's kind of where we sit today. That means that we have a little bit more cash balance today than we thought we might if that negative number was a little bit higher. That 48,250,000 there. Again, going back to those community conversations, a lot of what we talked about was what is the safe and responsible amount to keep in cash value. We want to invest in teachers, we want to invest in our programs, our staff across the district, but we also have to make sure we have the money on hand to pay the bills in case the state doesn't make a payment. And there's a number of things that we know have happened in the past that we want to be ready for. So that puts us at about 26.2%, so our cash balance versus our total expenditure. So it means if everything stopped, we basically have about enough money to pay for a quarter of a year as it sits today. That would be all of our bills, kind of encompassing a little bit more than just those costs. In the perfect world, we'll be able to keep this above that 18-20% range or in that range. And I think we're on track to be able to achieve that. But it's always one of the key indicators for DUAB, because of course, as that number goes down, their level of concern and just goes way up as far as what that means for our financial.
Dr. Stanfield, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you kind of explain this to me again? I didn't really understand it when I was going through the coursework either. So I had Nicholas try to explain it to me, but we didn't get it.
So just think of a household. The household, they know that they're going to spend. We'll use nice round numbers. They're going to spend $100,000 next year, or they spent $100,000 last year. I guess if you did that up accurate. And what this slide is saying is that same household then has basically $26,200 in their savings account.
Left out of the 100,000.
Yeah, so that the year's over, their bank account says 26,200 and they spent $100,000 last year.
Okay,
Does that help?
yeah, that helps. Yes, thank you.
It's a retrospective look, not a framework. Revenue, this is the main pots, you know, they're not a surprise here. The other local revenue is that really tiny yellow sliver there. But basically, we're looking at property taxes, we're looking at the referendum, and we're looking at the education fund. That's the red's the education fund, that's where most of our money comes, enrollment equals dollars. That's the big driver here. That of course, that also includes the NESP grant, the special education grant, the academic performance grant, but those all come from the state into that basic grant pot. I think the thing to remember here, if you look at that size of the green, you can see when we had the support of the community for 2 referenda. And now what? So that is obviously a part of the story of where we are today. I know that we went into that eyes wide open, knowing what that meant, but also knowing the responsible thing to do with regard to our community. Got to see how we can make this work at this level of funding. Operating referendum as a percent of total revenue. This is an important one because of the nature of referendum. When it's possible that you're going to have that revenue one year and then potentially not have it the next year, depending on what the community and voters support do have, and in us, obviously, as a district, want to make sure what is that percent? If we lost all of that funding, what would that look like? What would that mean to our budget? And this is really just a reflection of that. From DREAB's perspective and from our perspective, the higher this number, you're accepting a little bit more risk, the lower the number, accepting a little bit less risk. So we're, I think, in a pretty good position here, both historically and with where we're. This is a slide, I apologize. I wanted to make one other point here. So the yellow, green, and red here, representing cash balances. I think the one thing for the rainy day, the purple is not red, it's or pink is another shade. But the yellow, what do you notice about the yellow here? Got a lot smaller. I mean, what that reflects is that negative $10 million that we are spending down the cash balance in the referendum fund at this point in time. Now, once that's gone, we have to move expenses to other funds, mostly the operations fund, with our current financials. That is a key component here as we think about what that cash balance is and what it represents. So, happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions? Our work with policy analytics has been so valuable to our planning. And as Dr. Samuel shared, the good news is that with some of the levers we've been able to pull in the last 4 or 5 months, understanding that our finances are looking differently and will continue to look different in the future. We have gotten a little ahead of what some of that deficit could look like. So we're really excited about that work, but understand that it's just right setting the ship. I like the analogy, you know, putting us down the path to continue our cost saving measures. And we've mentioned several times the work of the SCA 1 Commission, which has just been, the deeper we get into the data, it's just been phenomenal work. So super excited about bringing that report to you in February. You know, I've got questions as I've been out and about staff. They're really curious to know what our next steps are, as they should be. I tend to see the glass half full. And while this is really going to stretch us in many ways, our thinking, prioritizing what's important for our classrooms, for our district, I just see the opportunity to right set some things. And so it'll be a good conversation. I think it'll be a hard conversation. But I think it'll also help us truly refocus. And use the information and input from our community to make things better. So that work is ongoing. Just before we came to this meeting, we were working on the SCA one commission work. So we will continue with that and bring that as soon as we complete the project.
Dr. Suggs and Dr. Samuel, this is a fantastic report and thank you for the effort putting that together. The coming months, this board will face some big decisions and big discussions. Along with the work that policy analytics is engaged with, are we considering doing a demographic study or demographic forecast? And would that be helpful in understanding what future funding might look like? Right.
Yes, so I have to thank the board for pivoting, changing our board meeting. It's supposed to have been Monday. And we were gonna have that demographic study for you. We'll have that at our February board meeting. So, yeah.
I did not know that.
And so that information will be shared. And yes, to your question, it certainly is gonna shape what, we do in the future and how we plan financially. I won't give it away, but we're gonna see the preliminary report. And I think it's useful. I don't think it's necessarily negative. It just gives us really good information about how we can move forward. With saying that, I would also say that right now, I've talked to, when I send you the weekly updates for the district, we're working really hard in terms of marketing and doing our registrations earlier and letting our community know about the great things that are happening in Wayne. And so those efforts are ongoing as well. So there are lots of levers that are being pushed at this moment to optimize our opportunity for students to come to Wayne and also to understand the data we need to understand to make really good decisions. So all of that coming. February meeting is going to be, packed with lots of good information.
Thank you so much.
How much they remind me, I don't know how much we shared about the first floor of the ESCC and the open enrollment pieces that connect there.
No, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
It's
Very exciting.
Yeah, I talked about, when I came on, there was a placeholder in our bond projects for renovations at the fire headquarters building. To prioritize that spending, we took those off. And really needed to, I think, assess facilities as a whole. With the sale of transportation and grounds team moving to our operations center, we were getting pretty crowded there. And so we could have looked at a number of things. Could we find a new place for grounds? We also looked at, can we find a new place for technology? While that was all happening, we also launched open enrollment, and we needed a space that was centrally located, that was going to be visible within the district, but also we felt like in a school maybe was going to be a little bit disruptive sometimes day to day. So those ideas come together, and we have a little smaller footprint from Wayne Township Fire and had an opportunity. Trustee Barden indicated they no longer needed the south side of the first floor. And so we're getting ready to go out to bid, and in March, we'll hopefully bring those bids to you to renovate the first floor of the fire headquarters building on just half of that first floor to house our open enrollment and then our technology team on that side of the building. We would also be able to, I don't know if you've been in the restrooms there, but we're able to scrounge up enough dollars to make sure that the restrooms are going to get renovated, the flooring and that common area in the middle. So we think, Dr. Suggs' point, that first impression that families get when they come in the district, that's gonna be a key part of that. And Dr. Harvey's team has done a great job developing that program, but admittedly, from a physical standpoint, it's a little bit challenging to come into that, and this is gonna improve that. Great.
Sorry. Thank you.
Outstanding.
I did want to interject. I was not sure if this needed to be outside of the regular board meeting we were having.
Yeah, so point of clarification, we will adjourn the Board of Finance meeting.
Thank you.
And then we will open a working session.
You,
Any other discussion for the Board of Finance meeting? Board of Finance meeting is adjourned. Does anyone need a quick recess or should we continue? Okay, very, very procedural. The January 28th, 2026 Metropolitan School District of Wayne Township Board of Education working session is called to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Mrs. O'Day, mark not the roll call.
I'm practice by Randy Bowman,
Present.
Susan Graves, present. Karen Burke. Present. Michael Gordon,
Present.
Ramika Graham, present. Ben Wakefield,
Still here.
and I'm still here as well.
Thank you. No public comment this evening.
no public comment.
We move into new business, the non-renewal of a contract. Dr. Slade.
To approve the agenda.
Not typically on a working session because typically we're not taking official action.
Okay, right. All right. Okay, tonight we are. Thank you. Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, this is a statutory requirement and I'll turn it over to Mr. Fessler to kind of explain why we're bringing this item to you tonight.
You. Mr. President, members of the board, tonight we're bringing a recommendation to approve the issuance of written preliminary notice of non-renewal to administrators whose contracts may not be renewed. This is a process we'll do yearly that just helps our school districts meet statutory requirements of Indiana Code 20-28-8-4 that provides timely compliance with timelines and provides a fair and transparent process should we need to move forward with the installation.
Any questions?
Is there any changes from what we had before then? Any significant changes?
On the same timeline, is we're maintaining the.
And this is not specific to a person. This is just in case we need to offer a cancellation.
So I recommend approval of issuance of written preliminary notice of non-renewal administrators whose contracts are not.
I recommend approval of preliminary notice, consideration of non-renewal of administrative contract.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any comment or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. The motion is approved. Thank you, Mr. Fessler. Thank you. Dr. Suggs, do you have any other board information?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. We had an interesting week. Say, yes. I'm super popular with students
Yes.
right now. So for this to be week 4, that's kind of fun. And staff came back this week and I'll be sending out a memo tonight to just address some questions about weather and staff returning, you know, the students didn't return, just to clear up some confusion there. So you can look forward to that later tonight. We did have a flood at Stout Field. We are so thankful for the quick response of our staff, our maintenance, our custodians. We had a paraprofessional who showed up at the building really early this morning, and when we went to visit, she was standing at the front door, hey, and she had been there helping to clean. I mean, the staff were phenomenal. They were back in their classrooms carpet was a little soggy, but drying very quickly. And they were just getting ready, for whatever kind of school day we're gonna have for tomorrow. We're excited to bring students back. So, we did have, a pipe issue at Westlake. The good news is that it was contained to the boiler room. Dr. Samuel, I'm assuming we got that taken care of. I didn't hear any more about it.
Especially in context, so feel very minor.
Very mindful. That's the truth. That's the truth. And then we have a school board visit tomorrow morning at Sanders School, not 8 a.m., but 9 a.m. They're a later start, so we're excited about that. That's always a nice visit, and Dr. Ashar says she's ready, so I'm glad about that. Yeah. I would be remiss if I didn't mention again, it is School Board Appreciation Month. We're nearing the end of that month, and we want to honor you as a school board. We're so grateful for your service and that you continue to serve. And you have chosen to give back to our community, so we want to thank you. We will make sure you don't forget to grab your bag on the way out and enjoy the fun things there. But you make this work that it sometimes can be very challenging, very heartfelt, and we feel very, very supported. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you.
I think the staff at Southfield is amazing, but also maintenance for all our schools with this weather. It's just been, I know it's not been easy, and it's just incredible how much work they can get done, all the snow and all the ice and the weather. It's definitely our unsung heroes for the week, but often I know
Yeah.
throughout the year they are, so
Yeah,
special people.
they are special. Thank you.
Thank you.
I live next to one, and he said, I don't know if I can make it to work. I said, I'll shovel out the cul-de-sac so I can get there. I went through it, so I have to shovel out, but I said, no, you need to get to work.
Do you have any additional board information? Comment? Motion to adjourn.
I'll motion. Make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. We're adjourned. I got two quick pieces of information, both about Dr. Butts. There was a small group, I was talking about 75 Harvard earlier. I gave you all bad information. I'm starting in April. That crazy man is finishing in April. He's doing it right now.
Oh, no.
And Dr. Suggs, you joked about being very popular with students. You may not know, Branson, my seventh grader, really looks up to Jeff. I mean, he holds him in high cloud. This morning, he said, Dr. Suggs is the greatest superintendent.
I love it. It's bad weather.
Thank you for that. I didn't catch who did the motion.